Taylor had died 99 times, and every time, the woman he loved killed him with her own hands, and yet, as he sat staring at the bland bowl of unseasoned noodles on the 1000th morning, he smiled bitterly. Not because he was alive again, but because he finally knew Helen wasn't saving him, she was saving Alex, again and again and again. It was the same bowl of noodles, always the same brand, always the same careless pour of boiling water, no seasoning packet, no garnish, no effort, just soggy, flavorless strands in a chipped porcelain bowl. He stirred it slowly with a pair of worn-out wooden chopsticks, steam curling up toward a face that hadn't smiled with sincerity in over 3 years. Helen's voice drifted in from the kitchen, bright, rushed, hopeful. "I'll be out in 5, just packing lunch for Alex." Of course, Alex. The same Alex who was fated to die tonight. The same Alex she'd been trying to save for exactly 999 loops. The same Alex for whom Taylor had been stabbed in the gut with a fruit knife, crushed under a car, suffocated with a pillow, drowned in a bathtub, and once, humiliatingly, shoved off a balcony because Helen didn't have time to argue. She never cried for Taylor, never held him while he bled, never once asked if he was okay after he was brought back by her power. But for Alex, she'd tried everything, bribing police, negotiating with criminals, infiltrating a tech lab, even sacrificing years of her own life. Every rewind shaved 1 day from her lifespan. She thought Taylor didn't know that part. She was wrong. He remembered everything. That was the curse. Helen's time reversal erased the memories of everyone around her, except his. While she believed she was operating alone in this endless purgatory, Taylor had been dragged through every second, every death, every breakfast bowl, again and again. He looked down at the noodles. The broth is barely warm now, even heat refused to stay for long in this recycled timeline. From the kitchen, he heard the metallic snap of a lunchbox locking shut. "I have something important tonight," she called. "Don't wait up." Taylor didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat was thick with the weight of unsaid years. He simply stood up, walked to the balcony, and retrieved the umbrella she always forgot in loop 1000. He placed it by the door. Then he opened the drawer by the TV and placed the car keys next to it. Helen emerged a moment later, wearing that soft beige coat Alex once complimented. Her hair was curled today. For Alex, again. She paused when she saw the umbrella and keys. "Oh, thanks," she said, her voice faintly uncertain. "You'll need them," Taylor replied without emotion. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, then vanished. "I'll try to come back early tonight and make you a real dinner." Taylor nodded once, the way he always did. "Sure." As the door closed behind her, Taylor turned back toward the untouched bowl. For 1,000 mornings, he had eaten these noodles. For 1,000 days, he had watched the woman he loved choose someone else. This wasn't heartbreak, it was erosion. A soul ground down to dust by the grindstone of misplaced love. Today was the last loop, the final attempt, the end of the pattern, and Taylor had made a decision. Taylor wasn't the loud one at the party. He wasn't the guy cracking jokes, commanding attention, or walking into rooms like he owned them. He was the one leaning against the far wall, quietly observing, listening, thinking. It wasn't that he was shy, he simply valued silence more than noise. In a world obsessed with attention, Taylor had made peace with being unseen. In college, people barely remembered his name. Professors knew him as the student who never missed a lecture and always turned in assignments early. His classmates called him that quiet guy when they forgot who sat next to them. He didn't mind, he didn't need to be known, not until she noticed him. Helen. She wasn't the loudest either, but she didn't need volume. She had presence, a calm kind of confidence that came with knowing who you were and never apologizing for it. The first time Taylor noticed her was in the library, standing on a wooden stool trying to reach a book she clearly couldn't. He had walked over silently, pulled the book down, and handed it to her without a word. She'd smiled. "Thanks, tall guy." That was all it took. A week later, she sat beside him in class. Then again the next day, she started bringing an extra cup of coffee and handing it to him casually, like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. To Taylor, it felt like gravity had shifted. He didn't fall for Helen the way people fall in love in movies, with fireworks and orchestral scores. He drifted toward her slowly, pulled in by something inevitable and quiet. And then, she saved his life. It happened during summer break. Taylor had joined a group of classmates for a spontaneous river swim. He wasn't a strong swimmer, but he didn't want to seem awkward by refusing. Halfway across, his leg cramped, the current was stronger than expected, his lungs screamed for air, his classmates were too far ahead to notice his struggle. Just as he slipped beneath the surface, ready to give in, a voice pierced through the rushing water. "Don't be afraid, I'll save you." When he woke up, he was back on the college steps, dry, confused. It was early morning, exactly 1 day before the swim. He staggered forward, wondering if he'd dreamed the entire thing, when Helen appeared, arms crossed, a frown on her face. "You're not going to the river," she said firmly. "It's dangerous." He blinked. "How do you know I was—" "I just know," she interrupted. "Avoid it." She walked away, leaving Taylor stunned and rattled. He cancelled the trip. That night, news broke about a student drowning in the same river. Not him, someone else. But that didn't matter. He knew. Helen had changed something. She had saved him. He didn't know how yet, but it didn't matter. He was already falling. Their relationship bloomed after that. Taylor asked her out a week later. She said yes without hesitation. Their first date was quiet, coffee, a bookstore, a shared umbrella. Taylor felt something he'd never known, seen. She listened. She laughed at his dry humor. She started calling him Rainboy because he always seemed to have an umbrella when it drizzled. He started calling her Time Lady, not knowing how right he was. It wasn't until their second year together that she told him. They were lying on the grass outside the astronomy building, watching stars flicker through light pollution. Helen turned to him and said, "If you could go back and fix one mistake, what would it be?" He thought for a while. "I'd tell my mom I loved her the day before she died. I didn't. I just argued with her about cleaning my room." Helen nodded slowly. "I went back once, to save you." He looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "That day at the river. I wasn't there the first time. You drowned. I reversed time. Took me 5 tries to get the moment right." Taylor stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. She explained it simply. She had a gift, a curse, depending on how you looked at it. She could rewind time to the previous day, but every time she did, she lost a day from her own lifespan. She aged a little, felt it in her bones. No one else remembered the resets, no one but her, or so she thought. Taylor didn't know why he was different, but from that moment, every time she used her power, he retained the memories. The first time it happened after she told him, he thought it was a dream, but the events repeated exactly, and her behavior was always just a little too knowing. It didn't take long for him to piece it together. And then came Alex. Helen's childhood friend, charming, charismatic. "Like a brother," she said. Taylor believed her, at first. When Alex's life was threatened during a corporate hit, something to do with internal sabotage and a car bomb, Helen panicked. She reversed time, once, twice, 5 times, 50 times. Every time she failed to save Alex, she tried again, and each time, Taylor remembered. At first, he tried to help. He researched the case, warned Alex himself, tried to investigate the people involved, but Helen never told him the full plan. She started to act alone, to shut him out. On the 43rd reset, he begged her to stop. She slapped him and stormed out. On the 72nd reset, he blocked the door. She stabbed him. On the 99th reset, she didn't say a word, just slit his throat while he slept, reversed time, and did it again the next day. It wasn't hate, that was the worst part, it was indifference. She treated him like a broken vending machine, an obstacle between her and her mission, and every morning, she served him the same noodles, unseasoned, lukewarm, and forgotten. Taylor stopped trying to intervene. He stopped talking altogether for a while, just observed, listened, waited. If this was love, it was love trapped in a loop, a curse disguised as devotion. Every new day was just yesterday's ghost. He started going to a cafe down the street, just for some air. That's where he met Rosie. The first time, she nearly died when a flower pot fell from an apartment balcony above. Taylor pulled her away just in time. She was shaken. "You just saved my life." He shrugged. Lucky timing. She handed him a free cup of coffee. "Then I owe you this. Come back sometime." He did. Over the next 100 loops, Taylor visited Rosie's cafe almost every day. She never remembered him, but she always smiled like it was the first time. Every time. And every time, he saved her from that flower pot. He didn't know why. Maybe he just wanted to prove to himself he could still care about something, or someone. Helen never noticed, or if she did, she never asked. In public, they still looked like a couple. She'd hold his arm when it suited her, smile for photos, post carefully curated moments on social media. But Taylor knew the truth. He had become a prop, a placeholder for a future she no longer wanted. And yet, he stayed. Not because he was weak, but because he remembered the river, the first save, the genuine smile, the woman who said, "I'll protect you." He stayed because he thought maybe, just maybe, she'd come back to him, but she never did. And now, on the 1000th loop, Taylor knew something Helen didn't. He knew what she'd forgotten to consider. That this reset wasn't just hers, it was his too. And this time, he wasn't going to let it happen again. Taylor tried everything. He started small, quiet gestures, placing Alex's file on Helen's desk with the phrase, "check again," written in pencil, switching off her phone alarms before she could leave, pretending to forget she had an appointment. Each time, she worked around it, without suspicion, without confrontation, as if Taylor was just part of the furniture now, background noise in a plan she didn't need to explain. So he escalated. One morning, he simply stood in front of the door. Helen adjusted the strap of her bag and gave him a confused look. "What are you doing?" "You don't have to go," he said, calm but firm. "We can find another way." She blinked once, then twice, and smiled. Not kindly, not angrily, just indifferently. "I'm going to be late, Taylor." He didn't move. She sighed, dug into her purse, pulled out a fruit knife, and stabbed him through the abdomen. No hesitation, no shaking hands. She stepped over his body on the way out, blood soaking the hallway carpet. Hours later, when she failed again and time reversed, he woke up with fresh clothes, a mended body, and the exact same bowl of plain noodles waiting on the table. "Eat before it gets cold," she said. He did, silently, because screaming wouldn't change anything, not anymore. She had killed him so many times now that he had lost count. Sometimes it was quick, other times it was angry, messy, desperate, but the intent never changed. Remove the obstacle, reset the day, try again. She still said she loved him, she still smiled in pictures, but the moments that used to mean something had faded into scripted repetitions. She no longer remembered their anniversary. He tested it once, left out a photo of their beach trip from 2 years ago. She glanced at it and said, "This was, where again?" When he reminded her, she smiled awkwardly. "Oh, right." She didn't even fake the warmth anymore, just moved through. Ate their routine like a scientist running trials in a lab. All focused on Alex. The just like a brother man. Taylor watched her brush her hair twice before each trip, apply the same perfume Alex once complimented, check her lipstick in the mirror with a slightly shy smile. She never looked like that when she was with Taylor. He wondered if she even realized the change. Once, he tried to talk to Alex directly. "You're going to die tonight," Taylor said bluntly. Alex frowned. "Excuse me? I don't have time to explain, just stay home, please." Alex laughed. "You sound insane. Helen told me you've been acting weird lately." Of course she had. Taylor walked away without another word. A few hours later, Alex's car exploded. Helen reversed time, again. It was the 603rd loop. By the 700th, Taylor stopped speaking altogether. He moved like a ghost through each reset, going through the motions, washing dishes, folding clothes, smiling when she looked, looking away when she didn't. She never noticed. Her touch faded from affectionate to mechanical. Her goodbyes lost their softness. Her promises lost their conviction. She was always somewhere else in her mind, somewhere next to Alex. And Taylor? He was the man standing just behind the glass, always present, never seen. Then, one afternoon, loop 716, he stepped out of the apartment early. No plan, no goal, just instinct. He wandered into a side street near the market and noticed a small, cozy cafe tucked behind a row of overgrown hedges. Inside, a woman with short dark hair was arranging flower vases on the tables. A loud crack above drew his attention. A flower pot on a balcony was teetering. He saw it falling. No time to yell, just motion. Taylor darted forward, grabbed the woman, and pulled her away a second before it shattered where she'd been standing. She looked at him, wide-eyed. You just... Thank you. That was close. Taylor exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Lucky timing. She smiled. It was a simple, honest smile, not curated for social media, not filtered through obligation, just real. I'm Rosie, she said. Come in, coffee's on the house. He hesitated, then nodded. That became the start of something he didn't expect. Every loop, he returned to that cafe. Every time, she had no memory of him. But every time, she smiled like he mattered. He never told her about the loops, never told her about Helen. He didn't need to. With Rosie, time felt slower, softer, gentler. He started looking forward to that one moment each day, the coffee, the conversation, the 5 minutes of peace. She told him about her dreams of traveling, how she wanted to see Iceland. How she hated black coffee but served it anyway. How she believed people came into your life at the exact moment they were supposed to. Taylor didn't respond much. He didn't need to. Just listening was enough. Sometimes, he forgot what day of the loop it was. Sometimes, Helen noticed the smile lingering on his face when he came home. She asked, once, "Did something good happen today?" He shrugged. "Just had a decent cup of coffee." She rolled her eyes. "You're getting boring, Taylor." That was loop 812. He died 2 loops later. She'd grown impatient again. By the 900th loop, Rosie had become the only stable thing in his world. A single variable that didn't shift, didn't break, didn't betray. Helen? She had become a stranger in his own home. She didn't laugh anymore, didn't cook anymore, didn't look at him like she used to. She started leaving before sunrise, coming home after midnight. Taylor once caught her staring at a photo of Alex and his team, her fingers tracing the outline of his face. When she noticed him watching, she simply said, "I owe him everything." Taylor replied, "You owe yourself something too." He didn't respond, just turned away. The next day, she killed him again. By loop 955, Taylor stopped waking up surprised. He simply rolled over, stared at the ceiling, and said nothing. Helen didn't even glance at him as she left. But Rosie still smiled like it was the first time they'd met. Every single time. And it was that, the simplicity of her kindness, the warmth of her presence, that reminded him he wasn't insane. That love wasn't supposed to be repetition, or sacrifice without return, or quiet bleeding in 1,000 different ways. It was supposed to be soft, and loud in the right moments, and felt. He sat across from Rosie one day, loop 975, and watched her make little animal shapes out of the foam in his coffee. A tiny bear, a leaf, a heart. "You're quiet today," she said. "Tired?" "Yeah," he said. "Just tired of the same day." She laughed. "Tell me about it. I work in a cafe, remember?" But he wasn't laughing. He looked at her. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. The way her sleeves were always rolled up. The way she hummed the same off-key song when she wiped tables. And something inside him shifted. He hadn't loved Helen in a long time. He'd just been surviving her. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe love didn't have to be pain on repeat. Maybe kindness didn't need a memory to be real. Maybe Rosie didn't remember him. But he remembered her. And in a world that refused to move forward, she was the only thing worth moving toward. Taylor folded the shirt precisely, the way Helen used to like it, sleeves tucked inward, collar shaped gently, seams aligned without wrinkles. The drawer clicked shut, followed by the soft thump of the closet door. He didn't have much left to pack. Most of his things weren't worth taking. Too many memories soaked into them, too many loops where the same shirt had been covered in blood, or torn during another failed attempt to stop Helen from leaving. The apartment was silent, save for the distant clink of Helen preparing lunch in the kitchen. He knew the smell, pan-fried rice, the kind Alex liked. She was probably slicing fruit, placing everything in the silver bento box she kept reserved for him. She still hadn't looked at Taylor since morning. He moved to the coffee table and picked up the frame, the one photo he hadn't put away yet. Their 3rd anniversary. She was laughing, leaning into his shoulder, arms looped around his waist like a vine refusing to let go. He was holding up a cupcake. They had been happy that day. She'd told him, with me around, you'll never be in danger again. And he'd teased back, unless you're the danger. She'd winked. Then I'll just rewind and undo the mistake. It wasn't funny anymore. Taylor slid the photo from its frame. His fingers shook slightly as he tore it down the middle. He stared at his half for a moment before folding it neatly and slipping it into his back pocket. The other half, Helen smiling like she had a future, he placed gently in the drawer she never opened. He wasn't angry. Anger required energy. What he felt now was a vacuum, an absence of anything that once tethered his heart to this woman, this place, this loop. He picked up the umbrella from the balcony railing and carried it to the front door. Right on time. Helen stepped out of the kitchen, snapping the lunchbox shut, her heels clicking softly on the tile. I won. "I'd be back tonight," she said, voice absent. "Important night." Taylor nodded and held the umbrella out. "Weather says it'll rain." She blinked at it, hesitated, then smiled. "Oh, right, thanks." Her eyes didn't meet his. She didn't ask how he knew. She didn't notice that for 999 loops, she had always forgotten the umbrella, except this time, and she certainly didn't notice that he had memorized every step of her routine while she hadn't noticed his existence for nearly 3 years. He watched her leave, her beige coat fluttering behind her. She didn't glance back. She never did anymore. He didn't eat the noodles. Instead, he grabbed his worn jacket, locked the door behind him, and made his way to Rosie's cafe. The bell above the entrance jingled as he stepped in. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and steamed milk, just like it always did. Rosie was behind the counter, humming to herself, her sleeves rolled halfway up her forearms as she cleaned a glass with a white towel. Taylor looked up. The flower pot above the balcony had shifted again, same as always. He moved before he even thought, grabbed Rosie's arm, tugged her gently but firmly 2 steps to the left. The pot crashed a moment later, smashing on the sidewalk where she had been standing. Her eyes widened. How did you? Just a feeling, he said. You're like a human reflex, she laughed. He shrugged. Or maybe I've just been here too many times. She tilted her head. Have we met? Taylor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sort of. Not really. It's hard to explain. She gave him a curious look, then gestured to the bar stool. You want something sweet? Coffee? Juice? Juice, he said. Something different today. She smiled, turned, and returned a minute later with a glass filled with orange juice and a hint of crushed mint. New experiment. Want to be my guinea pig? Sure, Taylor said, taking it. He took a sip. That's good. You hesitated. It's been a long week. She laughed. It's Tuesday. He looked down at the condensation sliding along the glass. Is it? They talked for a while, nothing special, nothing urgent. She told him about the landlord raising rent, about the broken espresso machine, about a cat that wandered into the alley behind the shop and tried to steal a croissant. Taylor watched her. Every movement, every expression, the way her hands danced as she spoke, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, none of it rehearsed, none of it repeated. She was the only part of his loop that felt alive. After 20 minutes, he stood to go. Rosie handed him another small juice bottle. Take it for the road, you seem like you could use a second round. He looked at her and nodded, thanks. She didn't know how many times she'd done this, but he did, and each time, her kindness never changed. On the walk back, Taylor passed the bookstore where Helen used to wait for him on Saturdays. She hadn't stepped inside for 2 years. The window still displayed the same bestsellers. He paused, looked at his reflection in the glass. His eyes were sunken, shoulders tense, jawline sharper than it had been when the loops began. 3 years, 1,000 days, 1,000 deaths, not just literal, emotional, spiritual, metaphysical. Taylor had lost himself in small increments. A word unsaid, a moment skipped, a love ignored. Each day reset his body, but never his heart. The pain didn't vanish with time, it compounded. Helen treated it like a test she couldn't fail. Like saving Alex was the only equation that mattered, and Taylor was just another variable to balance. She had once told him, I'll save you for a lifetime. And she did. Once, then never again. And now, on loop 1000, he understood something he hadn't before. He wasn't here to stop her anymore. He wasn't trying to change her plan. He wasn't hoping she'd come back to him. He was here to end it. not by violence, not by begging, by letting go. Tonight, she'd try again. She'd run toward the bomb, toward Alex, toward her obsession. She would offer herself again and again because she believed sacrifice was the same as love. But Taylor wouldn't be in her way, not this time. He would act silently, strategically. He had already placed the call to the police, already tracked the real location of the bomb, already prepared the one thing Helen had never thought to do, solve the problem with clarity. She had used 1,000 chances trying to save Alex. Taylor would use one to save himself. He reached into his pocket and touched the folded half of their photo, the half with his face, then he walked back into the apartment, turned off the lights, and sat in silence. Midnight was only hours away. After that, time wouldn't reset. After that, if she failed again, it would be final. And if she succeeded, maybe she'd look around and realize the one person who stood by her for 3 years was gone. For good. The sky was beginning to dim as Taylor parked across the street from the entrance of Apex Tower, the sleek corporate building where Alex worked. The same place he died, again and again. The 1,000th time would be different. This time, Taylor was ready. He adjusted the dial on the small black box sitting in the passenger seat. It emitted a faint pulsing light, a portable signal jammer, illegal to own, dangerous to deploy, and absolutely necessary. The first part of Helen's blind spot had always been that she tried to solve everything emotionally. Taylor had learned to solve it tactically. He grabbed the jacket folded beside the jammer and stepped out into the cool evening air. As he crossed the street, he spotted her. Helen, pacing nervously near the revolving glass doors of the building. Her hands clenched and unclenched, her eyes darting up and down the road. She looked thinner. Not just physically, there was something paper-thin about her presence now, as though time itself had worn her down to the edges. She didn't notice him until he was just a few feet away. Her head snapped in his direction, eyes widening. "Taylor, what are you doing here?" He handed her the jacket without answering. "It's going to get cold. You always forget this loop." She hesitated, took it slowly. "You're acting weird again." He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "You'll get used to it." She opened her mouth to question him further, but then froze, eyes locking onto a sleek black sedan pulling up to the curb. Alex's car. The moment began to collapse in on itself. Taylor could feel it. Helen surged forward. "Alex, don't get out!" But it was already happening. Alex had opened the car door, halfway stepped out. The driver, who was not the usual driver, turned and pulled out a handgun from the glove box, aiming it squarely at Alex's chest. "Back inside," the man barked. "You too, big boss, now, too." Ayla moved quickly, sliding behind the corner of a planter, reaching into his coat to activate the jammer. He felt the pulse begin, the invisible hum blanketing the area. Helen stood frozen. The gunman had taken both Alex and his company's CEO hostage, dragging them toward the building's lobby. "If anyone moves," the hijacker warned, "I'll blow the car and we all go down together." Helen stepped forward. "Please, I have money, whatever you want, just don't hurt him." The man sneered. "You can start by proving you're useful. Take off your clothes." Taylor saw it in Helen's eyes, that flicker of resigned shame. She had done this before, many times, and every time, it broke a piece of her. She reached for her shirt's buttons. Taylor stepped out from behind the planter. "She's not doing that." The gunman turned the weapon toward him. "Who the hell are you?" Taylor didn't flinch. "Someone who's done this too many times." He walked forward calmly, hands visible, jacket still open. He spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're not detonating anything. I've jammed the signal. Your remote won't work." The hijacker's eyes narrowed. He pulled the trigger on the remote. Nothing happened. The silence was immediate, then tension, like glass just before it cracks. "What did you do?" the man growled, hitting the button again. And again, still nothing. "I don't think you understand how a jammer works," Taylor said coldly. "It blocks everything. Your bluff is over." The hijacker snapped. He shoved the CEO to the ground and yanked Alex forward, pressing the gun against his temple. "I can still blow his brains out," Helen screamed. "No!" She ran forward. Taylor caught her by the wrist. "Let me go," she cried, struggling. "I have to. He's going to—" "Taylor, please!" He held her tighter. He won't kill Alex. He's a pawn, a hired actor who knows the second he fires, snipers take him out. You're insane, she spat, pulling harder. What are you even talking about? I called them, Taylor said, voice quiet, 2 hours ago. Helen froze. Just as the gunman raised the weapon again, a sharp crack echoed through the air. His head snapped backward. One shot, clean, surgical, the man dropped like a marionette with its strings cut. Screams erupted from the bystanders. The CEO crawled away. Alex stumbled backward, panting, wild-eyed but alive. Helen stood in stunned silence, breath frozen in her throat. Across the rooftop, a sniper stood tall, lowering his weapon. Moments later, officers flooded the scene. The chaos blurred into white noise as Taylor let go of Helen's wrist. She turned to face him slowly, like gravity was pulling her toward something she didn't want to confront. You? She whispered, voice shaking. You knew? He nodded once. All 999 times. Her lips parted, but no words came. Taylor took a slow breath. I died in 99 of them, some quickly, some not, but I remember every one. Helen blinked, her voice cracked. Then why? Why didn't you stop me? Because you saved me once, he said. Back at the river. You gave me another chance, and I thought maybe, if I gave you enough time, you'd come back to me. A tear slipped down her cheek. Not sobbing, not broken, just fractured. Taylor continued. But I realized something. You weren't saving Alex out of love. You were saving him to rewrite a past you can't let go of. And you forgot something important. What? She asked, barely able to speak. That I was still here? She lowered her head, her hands trembled. I thought I was alone. I didn't know you remembered. You never asked. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did anyway. Silence stretched between them, filled only by sirens in the distance and the static hum of the disabled detonator. Finally, Helen looked up. So what now? I've repaid what I owed, Taylor said. You saved me, I saved him, we're even. He turned to Leah. V. She called after him, her voice cracking. Taylor, wait! He stopped, but he didn't turn around. She took one step forward. Don't go, not like this, please, we can fix this. He closed his eyes. There's nothing to fix, Helen. She collapsed to her knees. Taylor walked away, blending into the dispersing crowd. As the wind shifted, carrying the scent of gunpowder and dust, he didn't look back. Not once. Taylor, please, Helen whispered, her voice, once proud and untouchable, now cracked like thin glass under pressure. She stood in the middle of the courtyard outside Apex Tower, surrounded by the fading chaos of sirens and bystanders, her coat hanging off one shoulder, her expression hollow. Taylor didn't say anything. He stood beneath the street lamp, his shadow stretching far behind him, shoulders stiff, eyes locked ahead. Not on her, never on her again. Helen took a step closer, gripping the lunchbox still clutched in her hand. You're walking away? Just like that? After everything? He didn't look back. You broke up with me earlier today, remember? You said you weren't my girlfriend anymore. His voice was even, but not cold, detached. I'm just honoring your wish. She blinked as if the words had slapped her. That was... Her throat tightened. I didn't mean it. I was desperate. You were stopping me. I was trying to protect you, Taylor said quietly. Even when you were killing me for it. Helen reached out, catching his sleeve, her grip was weak. You love me, you said you'd marry me, protect me for a lifetime, you said. He gently pulled his arm free. And I did. For 1,000 days, while you ran toward another man. But I always came home, she said, voice shrill. I always came back to you. You came back to the apartment, Taylor corrected, not to me. She opened her mouth to argue, but froze when a soft, familiar voice interrupted. Hey, Rosie. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk, hair a little messy from the wind, still wearing her cafe apron. She looked between them calmly, then stepped forward and slid her hand into Taylor's. Her fingers were warm, real, steady. Sorry I'm late, she said. Then, without hesitation, she looked at Helen and smiled, just enough to be polite. Is this the woman who's been harassing you? Taylor glanced at her, surprised. But only for a second, then he nodded. Yeah. Helen's expression twisted. What is this? Rosie turned slightly, her tone playful but sharp. I'm his girlfriend. Got a problem? Helen blinked, stumbled backward a half step as if struck. You're together? You and her? Her eyes jumped to Taylor. That fast? 1 day later? Taylor met her gaze. To you, it's 1 day. To me, it's been 1,000. She started to laugh, loud, unhinged. It echoed across the street, drawing startled looks from the lingering crowd. You think it's over? Just because you made it past midnight? Taylor, you don't know me at all. He narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Helen's pupils dilated, her lips curled into something between grief and triumph. There's one thing I never told you, one final fail-safe, a last ability. I can rewind not just to yesterday, but to any day. Taylor froze. I've never used it, she continued, voice steadying now, because it costs everything. Years off my life, my strength, maybe even my mind, but I've held on to it for a moment just like this. Rosie's hand tightened around Taylor's. Helen stepped forward, her presence suddenly terrifying again. You think you've beaten me? That you get to walk off into some future I don't exist in? You don't get to erase me like that. You don't have to do this, Taylor said, a sudden panic blooming in his chest. Oh, but I do, she hissed. If I can't have you, no one will. I'll go back 10 years, before she ever met you, before you ever saw her smile. I'll make sure she never enters your life at all. I'll kill her if I have to. Stop, Taylor warned, stepping in front of Rosie. I warned you, Helen whispered. Her skin began to glow with a faint white shimmer, her hair blew in wind that hadn't existed moments ago. Time itself rippled around her, air warping, light bending as if something ancient was waking up inside her. No, Helen, please, Taylor shouted. This isn't love. Her body trembled, her face contorted in pain, but she smiled through it. Love doesn't matter, control does. The light grew blinding. Taylor turned to Rosie, grabbed her shoulders. Rosie, if you remember anything at all, meet me at 36 Chin Street in Jiangnan, 10 years ago. I'll find you, I promise. He never finished. The light swallowed them whole. Darkness followed, and when Taylor opened his eyes again, the world was quieter, dimmer, strangely warmer. He was sitting on concrete steps outside a familiar red brick high school building. Birds chirped. A soft breeze stirred his collar. His hands were smaller, his clothes too loose, his body a little lighter. He looked down and saw an old model cell phone resting in his palm. The date on the screen made his breath catch. 10 years ago. Summer, right after his college entrance exams. He was 17 again. He blinked slowly, his mind catching up. The reset worked, Helen had done it, dragged them both back to a timeline neither of them belonged in anymore. Shit, he muttered, pushing himself to his feet. His head spun, he steadied himself against the rusted railing and tried to think. Where would Helen go first? Would she try to find him, or Rosie? He didn't even know where Rosie lived in this year, didn't know her real name yet. Just knew her face, her warmth, her voice. The weight of time crushed down on him like a stone. He started running, through alleyways, past fruit vendors, past old bicycles and children playing with skipping ropes. Sweat clung to his back, but he didn't stop. He needed to find her. He needed to stop Helen before she did something irreversible. He had made a promise. The sun was already dipping low, casting long orange shadows across the street. By the time he reached the edge of Jiangnan's old residential block, his legs were burning. He stumbled toward the intersection where 36 Chin Street once stood. But the house was gone, or rather, hadn't been built yet. In its place was a rundown bookstore. The windows covered in grime, the shelves inside mostly empty. No Rosie. He stood there panting, hands on his knees, chest heaving, and then he heard the sound. The soft tap-tap of a cane against pavement. He turned. An old woman, hunched and wrinkled beyond her years, limped toward him. White hair, hollow cheeks. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Taylor, she rasped. His jaw clenched. Helen. She looked up at him, her voice barely audible. Do you regret it now? You chose her, you left me, and now you'll never have her either. Taylor didn't respond, his fists clenched at his sides. I loved you, she said, her breath trembling. I still love you. You tried to erase her, he said coldly. You gave up the last piece of yourself to destroy someone who never hurt you. She was going to take you away. You already pushed me away. Helen's knees gave out. She fell against the wall, her cane clattering to the ground. Taylor stepped forward, fist rising, then froze. What was the point? He lowered his hand. You're not a threat anymore. She coughed weakly. Help me. A shadow moved past them. A girl. 17, slight frame, canvas bag over her shoulder. She turned and looked at him. Her eyes were curious, familiar, careful. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. He stared at her. Rosie? She tilted her head. Do I know you? No, he said softly. Not yet. She glanced at the old woman collapsed nearby, then at him. Should I call someone? No, he said. She'll be fine. She turned to leave. Taylor's breath hitched. Wait, he called. She turned. If we ever meet again, he said, can I ask you for something? Okay. Get me a Coke, he smiled faintly. With ice. She blinked. We don't sell Coke at the shop. You will, he said. One day. She smiled, still confused. I'll keep it in mind. She walked away. Taylor stared at the horizon. The sun dipped lower, the sky turned golden. Behind him, Helen whispered something, but he didn't listen. He picked up the cane, gently placed it beside her, and walked in the opposite direction. Back into time, back into choice. He had work to do. The first breath Taylor took as he stepped out of the school gates hit like a freight train, fresh, heavy with youth. The air even smelled younger, chalk dust, wet pavement, cheap shampoo. The street ahead buzzed with students cycling home, their uniforms wrinkled, backpacks thudding behind them. He staggered forward in his high school shoes, too tight around the toes, body lighter but soul exhausted. Think, he whispered. Where would she be? If Helen had come back with him, if she had truly used her final ability to reset the timeline and erase Rosie before they'd ever met, then she could be anywhere. She might be dying, she might be watching, she might be holding a knife. Rosie didn't know him yet. He didn't even know her full name. He only remembered fragments, her smile behind the cafe bar, her favorite drinks, the way she hummed that off-key melody while arranging flowers. But in this version of time, those moments hadn't happened. She wouldn't know him, but he knew her, and he had to find her before Helen did. He started running again. Past the newsstand where he used to buy soda, past the bridge near the middle school gates. He scanned every street, every alley, searching for that one face, Rosie with her dark ponytail, her wide, perceptive eyes, the faint dimple in her left cheek. Nothing. His chest ached, his lungs burned, the heat of panic wrapped around his spine. Then, just beyond the park fence near the Riverside Library, he saw her. No, not her. An old woman. Bent over, thin to the point of transparency. She shuffled with a cane, each step labored like it took every remaining thread of will. Her hair was ghost white, skin wrinkled and tight around hollow eyes. Taylor stopped. Helen? The woman looked up slowly, as if the motion itself aged her further. Her voice came out in a dry croak, barely louder than the wind. Taylor. He approached slowly, no fear, just grim certainty. What did you do? She blinked slowly. I went back. Like I said I would. Before she could ever meet you. Before the flower pot. Before the cafe. He clenched his jaw. Where is she? Helen gave him a smile, not victorious, not vengeful, just tired. You can't have her. I made sure of that. I won, Taylor. She swayed, stumbled. Her cane clattered to the ground. Taylor caught her before she fell. Her entire weight collapsed into his arms, but she was so light now, like air, like the last breath of someone who had given everything and gained nothing. I don't hate you, he whispered. She blinked. Why not? Because I loved you once, and that love saved my life. Just once was enough. Her fingers trembled as they brushed his sleeve. And still, I lost. No, Taylor said. You gave up. A breeze passed between them, and then he heard it. Footsteps. Soft, light, familiar. Taylor turned his head. And there she was. Rosie, alive. Not 10 years older. Not confused, not lost. Just as he remembered her. White button-down blouse, grey pleated skirt, hair tied back. Sunlight hit her from behind, casting her in golden light like a memory made real. Helen saw her too. Her mouth fell open, but no sound came out. Rosie tilted her head, arms crossed gently. You didn't win, Helen. Helen shook her head. But I rewound. I went so far back. I know, Rosie said gently. I let you. Taylor's heart skipped. What? Rosie walked forward slowly. You're not the only one who can resist time loops. Helen's knees buckled again. Rosie crouched beside her, steadying the old woman's arm with surprising care. I've remembered every version, Taylor, every reset, every awkward introduction, every cup of coffee I made for you. You thought you saved me from the flower pot 1,000 times. She looked up and smiled. But I dodged it the last 500. Taylor could barely breathe. Atha, why didn't you ever say anything? Because I knew you weren't ready, she said softly. You were still trying to love someone who had already let you die. Helen gasped in the crook of Taylor's arm. Rosie placed a hand on her back. I waited for this loop, for you to finally break free, and you did. Taylor looked down at Helen, still clinging faintly to his sleeve, tears streaming down her weathered face. Her fingers were bone-thin now, her lips trembled. I just wanted to undo my mistake, she croaked. Taylor nodded slowly. You did what you thought was love. She shook her head. I loved you. So much. I know, he said. But you didn't know when to let go. She closed her eyes, her breath grew shallow. Can I rest now? Rosie looked at Taylor. He swallowed and nodded. Then carefully, gently, he helped Helen sit against the wall beneath the sycamore tree. Rosie handed her the cane. You won't be alone, Rosie said. Not today. Helen managed a faint smile. She's kind, you always needed kind. Taylor stood. So did Rosie. They turned together, hands brushing, then interlacing naturally, like they'd done it 1,000 times already. And maybe they had. Behind them, Helen watched them walk away. And for the first time in 1,000 days, Taylor didn't feel like he was carrying a weight. He felt like a page had finally turned, like the clock could tick forward now instead of resetting itself endlessly. They walked side by side, through the quiet school courtyard, past the corner convenience store, past the children laughing in the park, Taylor's hand still in Rosie's. She squeezed once. You okay? He exhaled. I think I am. She looked up at him, curious. What now? He thought about it for a second, then smiled. Wanna open a cafe again? She laughed. Only if we stock Coke this time. With ice? With extra ice. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows behind them. Time didn't rewind. It moved forward. At last,